Well, congratulations on the film and also on the reception that it got the premiere at Tribeca, which was just incredible. What did that mean to both of you, just the way it was received at Tribeca?
For me, it was great because having the film, I wrote the first draft July 2017. I had a whole successful career that I walked away from to pursue writing and directing. And then I spent a year in the pandemic in my kitchen doing post-production on this thing in the dark by myself, totally isolated as the world was ending, having no idea, what's going to happen. So to finally have the people see the film and human beings to interact and get received like that, for me, it's huge. Like, this was a big kind of gamble and kind of all or nothing thing, and it seems to have paid off. So pretty happy.
For me, I was so excited just to honestly see the movie on a big screen, and especially since Tribeca was one of the first in-person festivals, it felt like this really exciting, very special moment. And we premiered the movie like on the water by all these boats, and I remember I was like, what a beautiful night. And I flew back to LA, and then Lauren called me and is like, you just won Best Actress and I just won Best Narrative and Todd just won Best Cinematography. And I wait, what? I was just so like honestly shocked and happy and proud. So really, really exciting.
I was so pleased because I think it really is one of the best films that I've seen all year, and it's one I keep recommending to people. Isabelle, just sticking with you for a moment, I wonder if I could just take you way back just for a moment. You got into acting very young, but was there something that made you think, oh, I want to do that? Thinking back
about acting in general, I was I'm a younger sibling. I am a younger sibling. And, when you have an older sibling, like everything my sister did, I kind of like copied and did as well. And I remember the first thing that I kind of chose out of like our extracurricular activities, because my sister was constantly like, doing sports and all this sorts of stuff, was singing. And I got into musical theater really just because my parents worked full time and needed to put us someplace in the summer so that way my parents could go to work. And so we did musical theater camp. And my career kind of weirdly enough just kind of happened, like things kind of fell into place originally. Like some woman, who was like a casting director saw this play where I honestly wasn't anybody. I was just kind of in the ensemble or whatever, but she told my mom that your daughter has like a lot of talent, you should get her an agent. My mom was like, no way, and no way in hell I'm doing this. This is ridiculous. And my sister really wanted to go to this like audition for an agency in Atlanta, and my mom took us, and like they ended up signing me out of like thousands of people that went. And we didn't even understand what that like concept was. And I remember I was taping auditions like just for fun with my dad and my mom in my living room with my dog, like talking to my dog. And somebody saw an audition tape in LA and wanted me to come to Los Angeles. And my mom was kind of changing her career path at that time. And so we came for like a month, and then I ended up staying for 3 because I was working so much. And then we came back to Atlanta, and it was kind of like, we're just going to forget this ever happened or whatever. But I really loved it. I loved playing pretend, and I loved being able to be on a set. And I made a deal with my mom that we would go to LA for a year, and if nothing happened, I would wait till I was 18. And I booked Orphan. And that was, I think, the first time I realized that this was something that I could do as like a job. Like you could do this forever, because I was working with adults who were doing this too and loved it. And Vera Farmiga and Peter Sarsgaard really took me under their wing and offered me so much advice, and they're really like parents to me on that set. And it really became something that I, from the time, I know it sounds crazy, but from the time that I was like 10, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And so I've done it ever since. And I've kind of had this, kind of mentality of like, why would I do anything else? I love this so much.
Exactly. Or I think that's exactly what you need, isn't it, to succeed in it, really.
I feel for Alex in that sense too, because it's like I've been in this industry a really long time, and like, Lauren and I had many conversations about this, like how Alex is kind of semi-haunted by the naturally gifted. And it's like, I've been working in this industry since I was a kid, and I've seen people that I've started out with, or people that you know, literally come out of nowhere and all of a sudden have this like amass this incredible amount of like what you perceive on the outside, I guess, as success, working with all these incredible people. And I feel like I have like an incredible amount of resilience, and I know that it's gonna happen because I'm just gonna keep fighting for it. I'm still here.
Now, Lauren, when it came to writing this film, I know that you put a lot of your own personal experience into it, but I wondered whether, when it came to actually making the film, did you see sort of some kind of parallel there in Alex's story of the determination and endurance that's required to get a film like this up on screen to the point, you know, where you can show it at Tribeca?
I took my 4 years of collegiate experience and kind of compressed it down into a year, but I was also double majoring. I was doing honors programs. I was working, I was interning, I was in the film club, I was volunteering, I was in the vegetarians club. I was extremely overextended and I was so exhausted. Like my senior year, I would wake up in tears, you know, at 5 a.m. I woke up at 5 a.m. every 6 days a week for 4 years. Never once pushed snooze, and I would cry driving to practice, like I just want to fucking sleep. And I would take power naps in the boat, like, you know, when it wasn't my turn to row, I would just sit there like a just 20-second power nap. I would go to my internship and close the eye. Like my boss would sit to my right, I would close my eye towards the wall to try and think like maybe I could be like a dolphin and get some sleep like that. Like I was fucking exhausted. And I just trying to count down to graduation to survive. I was like, I just have 4 more months, 3 more months, 2 more months. I was counting down and I could not wait to be done, like, because I couldn't quit. I had to make it to the finish line. And I did not experience that level of exhaustion again until making The Novice, funnily enough. Because then it's like, you know, 20 hours a day when we were shooting, for me at least, like getting everything done, prepping before, prepping after, and just going constantly. We shot 6 days a week, but on the days off, I would be editing the film. And you know, and then the resiliency required going into post-production in the pandemic and just kind of going at this an indie. You know, we didn't have a lot of money, and like I started editing out as necessity, and I was doing a lot of this work that, you know, usually if you're working on a kind of a bigger film, you have a whole team, but it was me in my kitchen with my laptop doing this stuff, and the world was ending. And so whatever resiliency I picked up kind of in my school years definitely, I think, has carried through and has been, this is the blood, sweat, and tears investment that hopefully I never have to do again at this level. But you know, whatever you like as a director, as a writer, whatever I'm working on, like I have to be willing to cry in fetal position on the floor over, or else I'm not going to do it, because it's inevitably going to end up there. So hopefully I answered your question.
Yes. My experience of rowing was like, oh, I'd like to row, you know, when I was at school, high school. And you know, the instructor saying, okay, well, you need to come every day, you know, at like 5 and go on the machine. And I think I only made it 2 days. But it's
brutal. Yeah.
Yes.
When people, they say, oh, I love rowing, I get on the machine at the gym. I'm like, you don't really love it. Like, I mean, you're doing your thing, but you haven't really experienced rowing if you're saying, oh, I love it, it's so fun. So, you know.
So when it came to giving us a sense, Lauren, of the sort of how physically demanding and psychologically demanding it is, what did you want to convey about it, and how did you go about doing that with your brilliant sound design, your cinematography?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge became, there aren't a lot of films about rowing. The ones that exist, a lot of them aren't, for me, don't capture it, except for the scene. There's a scene in Social Network that's brilliant, but that is one scene. So it's how do you do an entire film about rowing? And 99% of people who watch this film don't know anything. They don't know what it's, they're the people who are like, oh, I love rowing, it's great. So I'm like, how do you make the audience feel what the character is feeling? And so, and one thing, a lesson I learned from a sound supervisor I worked with in my kind of first career, he said something to me that's always stuck with me. He's like, whatever sound you're putting in, everything needs to be telling the story. It needs to be adding to the story. So for me, approaching the rowing scenes really became about how do I sort of evoke what the character is feeling to the audience. So it's not so literal about just capturing rowing and making it, you know, cool and shooting it like a commercial. It's about getting into the emotional experience of the character, getting very subjective. So using the sound design, getting into her head, warping into her head, and everything else falls away. And when you're rowing, you know, your tunnel vision's going in, you're just totally focused, and even shooting it that way, and shooting with spotlights, and being very kind of subjective with what we're experiencing, and framing the rowing as the relationship between Alex and the boat, and it's really like almost like a love relationship. There's the B story, the queer story, the love story in this, but the real love story of the film is Alex in this boat, from the first kind of attraction to the clunky beginning, so the first time making love at 500 frames a second, sweating and glossy, and to the first time like falling in love, the beautiful foggy row and the sun is rising and there's birds flying across the camera, and then to the slow kind of toxic descent of losing control and the relationship crumbling and like her crumbling. So really kind of thinking about that emotional space when it came to what we were putting on the screen and what we were putting in the speakers.
Yeah, seeing as you mentioned the queer aspect, let's just pick up on that for a second, because one thing that I just loved about it is that she's not othered for being a queer character, and it's not an essential part of the plot in any way. And in fact, it's like, oh, if this character was straight, then we wouldn't need to comment on the fact that they were straight, which kind of seems obvious, but in some ways it's kind of revolutionary, really, that we're getting these queer characters now where it's just like, yeah, she happens to be queer,
I mean,
so what?
Yeah, you hit it completely. And I didn't want a message narrative attached to the queer aspect of that. That is the message narrative. It's like there isn't a point. And so there isn't the moment where she's questioning her sexuality, or the moment where her teammate finds out she's dating a woman and calling her slurs or what. Fuck that. Like, I think that my experience as a queer person, yes, we've all had, we all have our moments of things going down, but for the most part, I'm just living my life normally. And I think we do need queer stories about sort of oppression and the challenges that queer people have overcome and all of that. But what we're severely lacking, in my opinion, is stories where what you're saying, where the queer relationship just is. Because that, to me, like, I want kids, 18-year-olds, watch this film and not have to think like, it's everything you're seeing, every representation of queerness is so like intense, and I'm coming out and my family's gonna, like, you should, there's more to it than that. Like, you're just a fucking person. Being queer is not, I don't like, it's like not, it's part of me, and being a woman, but these aren't my identity. Like, I'm not like, I'm a woman, I'm queer, like, like those are me, but that's not everything about me. So I really wanted to kind of just have that and not comment on it, exactly like what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's about how about for you, what did you make of the way that Lauren had written that, and just inhabiting?
No, I agree. I think that I hadn't read, I mean, now that I think of it, I don't think I've read a script before or since where the romantic relationship is, between two women or two men is not a conversation of, a topic of conversation within the film. And I really loved that, because even Lauren told me that when she originally wrote the script, she originally wrote the Danny character just because of all this, preconditioning we have as a guy, and that she was like, why am I writing this as a guy? Because
I'm not even saying. I'm like, it felt weird. I'm like, why is, like, I don't even like this character. I'm like, no wonder, Lauren. It's like the compulsory heterosexuality overtook me as I was writing this personal story. Is ridiculous. But anyways, continue.
But what I really love about it is, Danny is an androgynous name, and Danny is who Alex loves. And I thought that was such a beautiful part of the story that, it doesn't have to be a question. It doesn't have to be an issue. It doesn't have to be something that people are discussing or talking about, or like Lauren said, where the girls in the locker room are making slurs or anything. It's just a part of Alex and who she is. And I also love that she's comfortable in her own skin. I think that it's very rare to see a queer character in a film that is just comfortable in her own skin, and not necessarily having to overcome something at the same time in that relationship. That it really was just who she is and a part of her. And I really found that to be really beautiful. And working with Delone was like a dream. I mean, I remember telling Lauren, I was like, this is who you cast to like play my love interest in the movie, because she's so gorgeous and so smart and so cool. And I remember I was so flustered when we first met. I still
get flustered. You're like, you're getting all flustered now.
I get really flustered around her. I have such a crush on her. I love her. She's so cool. Anyway, so it really was just a beautiful a beautiful relationship we got to form together as well. You know, doing our scenes together, because we really developed a really close bond. I mean, like, we were crying on the floor of that bathroom after we filmed that breakup scene. It was like Lauren, our DP Todd, Delone and I, like, in the fetal position, like huddling and just sobbing. And I was like, wow, you know, it's how you know that you're really capturing something authentic and real.
Well, that's great casting, Lauren.
Yeah, this is Delone's, it was her first role in film, so yeah.
And I found that the experience of watching it is kind of exhilaratingly intense, like from beginning to end, which I loved. So when it came to inhabiting the character, what was your experience of that? And also, you know, the physical demands as well. I mean, I know that you're a runner, but I guess it was a different demand physically, right?
I'm incredibly uncoordinated. So I think the first step was like, Lauren like hauled her old erg machine out of the back of her garage and was like showing me how to row. And even still, once you get out on the water in a single too, which again is like it says in the movie, it's very easy to flip. The amount of times I went in the water at like 5 a.m. in Marina Del Rey, I was just like, oh. You know, you really kind of, I really had to learn the sport, and then it becomes kind of, you know, similar in a sense to running, in the sense that it's cyclical. It's the same movement over and over. But once you know, getting the technique, and even still by the end of the movie, I mean, I felt like I had grown leaps and bounds from, you know, when we first started, but still, like, I in no way feel like when I watch the movie, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have been better at this. You know, I'm seeing little issues that I have with my own physical sort of performance, but really diving into the story and being able to play Alex and falling in love with the sport of rowing was such a huge part of how I got into character. You know, I was waking up at 4:30 in the morning like Alex. I was driving, you know, I was like rolling out of bed and like with my clothes that were like already pre-opened on the floor, and like putting them on so I didn't have any chance to like get back into bed, but I also had like the most amount of sleep possible. I was like just climbing into my car in the freezing cold and, you know, driving at 4:30, 5 in the morning to get to the marina. I'm getting on the water for 3 hours, watching like the most beautiful sunrise I've ever seen every single morning, and then like sleeping for 15 minutes and stuffing food in my face before I was back on the water for another 3 hours. I gained 12 pounds of muscle for the role, and I was like incredibly sore. My hands were bleeding. I had blisters all over. I felt like at some moments when my alarm would go off in the morning, I was like, I can't move. I can't move. I can't move. But I loved every moment of it looking back, because it really was like the easiest way for me to get into this character. Was really kind of like Lauren said, this is the essential love story in the movie, is between Alex and this boat. And I really got to fall in love with the sport of rowing. It became my life for 6 weeks and for the 2 months of us filming. And that was all I was doing, was like living and breathing the sport. And it put me in this kind of exhausted mental and physical state that I think really helped my performance, because, you know, in acting talk, people call it like the pocket, the emotional pocket or whatever. And it really is more so when you have nothing left to like keep anything at bay, when you're just like so emotionally raw. And I felt like I was there the entire shoot. Like, I really was so lucky in a sense, because Lauren cast such incredible people, that I got to come to set every day and be so present. And because I was like so physically and mentally exhausted and was living and breathing what Alex was living and breathing, I was emotionally in this place of like, I felt like I had to be the best on set. I felt like I had to prove myself every single day. That people said, like I remember when Amy said that nobody respects you when she was in that hallway. I remember it literally like felt like someone had like broken a twig. Like, you know, you watch the like frayed pieces of wood, like that's what it felt like in my heart, because I was there at that place. I was like so there with Alex every step of the way. And really, you know, Lauren was the one who facilitated that entire thing by being adamant that I row the entire movie, that we didn't have any doubles, that it was like as authentic as it could possibly be from beginning to end. And I really am grateful to that.
Yeah, well, it all really shows on screen. So yeah, but it's,
I hope so.
Yes, it's an incredible dedication, yeah, to the role, and you know, brilliant performance. And just so we balance it out, Lauren, I know I was asking Isabelle about getting into acting and the spark. And for you, I believe it was watching Kill Bill. And could you just tell me what it was kind of about that film that kind of ignited your passion for the idea of kind of becoming a filmmaker?
Yeah, I mean, my whole life I've always been writing stories. And if you would ask me when I was 7, like, what do I want to be when I grow up? I want to be an author. Like, that was my thing. And then, you know, classic found my parents' VHS camera. I was making slasher horror films with my friends when I was 10 years old. But my parents were pretty good about, movies were always important in our household. Friday night, movie night, we would rent 2 movies. We would go to Sunday morning matinees. But my parents did not let me watch our movies. And if there was a sex scene, we had to leave the room and then we'd come back when it's over. Like, that was a thing. So, and Kill Bill sounded so stupid to me. I have an older brother and he's a nerd. Him and all his nerdy friends were going to go see Kill Bill. And it was about this white woman doing Kung Fu. And I'm like, that sounds so stupid. You know, I was like, I don't know, 14 at the time. And fast forward a year later or whatever, when it's on DVD, my mom was taking a nap. My dad put Kill Bill, the DVD, into the DVD player and immediately passed out and fell asleep in the chair before the even started. And I saw that the movie was rated R. And so I was like, this movie sounds stupid, but I'm going to watch it because it's rated R. I might not have this chance again. And so Sunday afternoon, I watched Kill Bill at like 2 p.m. and it blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it. And just the sort of lack of subtlety. And I mean, anyone, obviously Tarantino's known for this, but just being in your face, and probably these female characters who were badass, but kind of fucked up and twisted. And there's the emotion, there's the fun, there's the adventure, there's all of it. It just shattered kind of my view. And at that point, my parents just gave up trying to stop me. And I watched that film probably 100 times that year. I was 15 and I was watching all of Tarantino's films, started watching all of like Scorsese and Goodfellas, and all the whole R-rated thing just went right out the fucking window. And I knew from that moment I wanted to be a filmmaker. And so maybe it was good my parents didn't let me watch anything, because then when I saw this thing, it just slapped to the face.
Yes. And I love when something's so impactful like that, you can remember the details of, like, you know, like you were saying, putting the DVD in and it was 2 p.m. on a Sunday, and it's just incredible how those things stay with us. Well, yeah, congratulations again on The Novice. Lauren, Isabelle, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, James.
Bye.
Thank you.